Wobble. You're going to have me reading one-handed now. Okay. All right, first of all, let me just say I want to thank Dr. Harville and definitely want to thank Ms. Cooper for inviting me here this morning to be with you. I have a big hand for them. I want to thank Dr. Wilkes for that wonderful introduction of today's program, getting us all woke up and getting the spirit flowing here this morning. And want to thank Brother Sumwabu, who's setting up, going to do some taping the program for us. Want to thank my dad, Richard Clay Sr., who's here this morning. He wanted to come, he's helping out today. And I want to thank you all for showing up this morning, because you could have been a lot of other. For the book, it says Raised Wrong, Educated Worse, Addressing the Troubled Behavior of Our Sons on the front. And you should have one that says 10 Tips for Parents Raising Young Black Males. And then you should have one that is a 2-page handout, multicolored. Everybody has those 3?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, let me see how much. So, are you sure you need me to use this?
Okay,
You absolutely sure?
I moved up a little closer, so I'm better now.
Okay, all right. Okay. Now I'm free. Okay, just very quickly, anybody in here felt like when I walk in here like they saw me before?
Yes.
Anyone?
Yes.
Okay, then can anybody tell me where?
Northwestern.
Okay, Northwestern High School, very good. For the past 7 years, I taught at Northwestern High School. I taught social studies there. I have to thank anyone who's here from the McMichael staff for sending us the beautiful children that I've had the pleasure of teaching over the past 7 years. And it's been great. I really enjoyed my time at Northwestern. While I was at Northwestern, and while I was the person who did the student council for Northwestern High School, I took the kids to student council meetings, different things, trips across the city, across the state. I really began to study what was going on in our school, and I saw some disturbing trends. There were trends that I tried to address to my best ability in the classroom, but I still felt kind of limited. I began to research these trends, and I really began to see that while many of our students were not doing as well as they should be in school, there was in particular an alarming problem going on with our young males. The question in school was always seemed to be, what is wrong with these boys? Who's raising them? Who's educating them? What is happening? Where are we going wrong? And so as I began to try and put more into that, because as a teacher, if you didn't at the high school level, if you don't address that question, then it only took a couple of these young men with high energy and a different agenda to ruin your classroom. So you had to begin to address the problem and come up with some solutions for it. As I began to come up with solutions for it, read different things, and share my solutions, other people were saying, wow, okay, that's information I didn't know. That was how I began to embark on my new career as an educational consultant, training staff members, training parents into how we were going to begin to address this problem. A recent national survey indicated that the graduation rate, national graduation rate for young black males, what do you all think it is from high school? How many of our young black men do you think actually graduate from high school in this country? What percentage?
10%.
Okay, we're doing a little bit better than that, a little higher.
25.
40%.
42%. 42%. However, this is after every school district across America fudges the numbers up as much as they possibly can. Okay.
See?
They have a process. I won't even go into it. We got many other things to get into, but they have a process by which they up the numbers, and the highest that they can up it to is 42%, which means that basically 6 out of every 10 young men that we send to elementary school, to kindergarten, to first grade, do not graduate with a high school diploma. Only 4 out of 10 do. And in this high technological society, a high school diploma is the least that you must have in order to compete for jobs, to compete for resources, and to build and maintain a family out here. So that means that 6 out of every 10 of our young men that we start out as little boys, we put them all in school because it's mandatory. And somehow along the way, we're losing. That wasn't the only disturbing factor that I was looking at. There was a researcher named Michael Mills. I know you all have your little notepads. You might want to jot a couple of these names down. Researcher named Michael Mills, who worked at Harvard University. In 1995, Michael Mills wrote what I thought should have been a watershed book in the black community. However, it got very little play. It didn't get the same play that some of the romance novels and the other books that we read, the sports books and all of that, get in the black community. He wrote a book, it was called The FBI's War on Crime.
All right.
In this book, Michael Mills, a Harvard sociologist, he analyzed all of the FBI's current crime data and statistics. And he basically drew the conclusion that if things continue the way that they are, with no interruptions, no changes, no new programs, that by the year 2020, 63% of all black men between the ages of 18 and 34 would be in prison.
All right, you know, that's a lie.
63%.
Rebuke that.
Now, Michael Mills wrote that book in 1995, and it's 2007. When we look today at the prison statistics in the United States, which a lot of people don't know, our country has the most people in prison of any country in the world. We have over 2 million prisoners in the United States. More than 1 million of them are African American, and 900,000 of those are African American men. Okay? Now, this means that when you put the two together, the low graduation rate, the high dropout rate, and then the increasingly alarming prison rate, we're moving towards a situation where we are totally losing our men, we are totally losing our young people, and we need to do some immediate shifts.
Yes.
That was why I wrote the book. That was why I began to do some of the things that I began to do. In terms of what should we begin to do to address this problem, we want to, when I do workshops for the teachers, we do a lot of things, begin to show the teachers different strategies. So when we come to the parents, we're not just picking on the parents. I wanted to end this whole thing about the blame game. Mm-hmm. My book is titled What It Is, Raised Wrong, Educated Worse, Addressing the Troubled Behavior of Our Sons, because our sons, not all of them, but many of them do have some troubled behavior. And I got tired of being, when I was working in the school, as teachers, we were always saying, man, what is wrong with these parents today? Mm-hmm. What are they doing at home?
Yeah. See.
Then when I got out of school and I was around, just the other adults, they were always saying, man, what in the world is wrong with these teachers?
Yes.
What's wrong with these schools? What do they do all day? They got them for 8 hours. What do they do with them? So everybody was pointing fingers at everybody. The administrators are pointing fingers at both. Boy, my teachers can't get right and my parents can't get right. I just don't know what I'm going to do. I can't get the parent involvement, and I can't get my teachers to get on board. Teachers are pointing fingers back. Well, if only our administrators would do this. And so everybody was pointing fingers. Nobody was coming up with any solutions. The problem was getting worse. For us parents, one of the first things we need to look at, I want you to look at the handout that says reestablishing discipline at home. One of the main things that teachers in the classroom complain about is discipline. They have problems with classroom management, and much of it stems from the undisciplined behavior that they deal with within the classroom. So one of the things that we want to do as parents is we want to make sure that we have established, or at least that we reestablished discipline within our homes. It says here, the discipline is a concept that begins in the home. The new school concept of parenting that says, quote, I am your parent as well as your best friend. This concept is quite popular today, yet it yields terrible results among young black males. Terrible. Because see, while it is important for every parent to fully develop open and honest lines of communication, as well as a good sense of trust between them and their sons, your role as a parent is by far superior and more supervisory in nature than that of any best friend. There's just some things that you have to do as a parent and some responsibilities that you have that are far greater than those of any best friend. There is and should be no comparison or confusion between these two very distinct roles. So laxing rules, overemphasizing your friendship can sometimes blur the lines between the two roles, and it can encourage the closing of the lines and the diminishing the great nature of the role that you have as a parent in your son's eyes, in your daughter's eyes. That is very, very important. So we look at, from the day that they enter your home, you need to make it very clear to your sons exactly who's in charge, exactly who is responsible for what existing rules there are going to be, what type of boundaries there are going to be, and what exactly the consequences are really going to be enforced when they break certain rules. We always say it is good to have certain rules up on the refrigerator. Put that right up there with the magnet where everybody can see it, certain house rules. And to be sure that those rules are evenly enforced to the best of your ability. I mean, if we got several kids, we're going to slip up a little bit. We're all human. And our kids are going to remind us when we slip up. They're going to remind us, well, you let him do so-and-so, and you didn't let me. Oh, they're going to remind us. We don't have to worry about that, okay? But to the best of our ability, the important thing, though, is to have the rules and to enforce them and to have some set of consequences, because one thing that I saw in the schools was our kids, especially our young men, they will always get into trouble. And then they would be surprised, shocked, and absolutely upset when the consequences came. And I always try and get them to understand, look, you know the rules, and you have the choice to follow or break the rules. But when you break them, expect consequences. And in many instances, they were used to being at home or being in classrooms where they could break the rules and there would be no consequences. We cannot allow our sons in this world that is so high on punishing young black men, no matter what age they are, even if they're only 11 years old like Nathaniel Abraham. When we do that to them, we are setting them up for failure and setting them up for the prison trap, because they are going to meet consequences for their behavior out here. Now, I list down here just a few things, because a lot of parents say, well, that's a long day. Some parents say, Mr. Clay, I hear you on this whole discipline thing, but it's really not much we can do anymore. If we holler at them, they say don't holler at them. If we cuss at them, they say don't cuss at them. If you give them a whooping and a little bitty mark show up on them, you're really in trouble. What can you do with today's kids? Same thing that the teachers tell me. So wherever I go, I can't just say, establish discipline, reestablish this. We got to give you some ways of how to do it. And this is nothing new. I just list down here a few things that are still within your power that you can use in terms of disciplining your children, such as punishments, silent time, extra reading, and study time. Tupac Shakur said one of the ways that he became so knowledgeable of the events of the world was every time that he really, really messed up, his mama made him sit down and read the New York Times newspaper from the front cover to the back cover. There is temporary bedroom isolation. General travel and visitation restrictions. You're not going nowhere. Removal of toys for the little ones. Removal of favorite privileges, including the telephone, TV, cable services, video games, and internet. Sometimes you just got to call Comcast and say, cut it off for a while. Shut it down. A lot of us scared to do that because we watch more TV than the kids. We can't even discipline the kids with, oh, what I'm going to do. See? Now the kids running wild, but you got to do these types of things because you got to prove to them sometimes. We know once you get to teenager stage, we got to prove who's running this bad boy. And then many times we not running it. Reduction of sweets and treats. Complete suspension of or reduction of allowance. Money talks, even for the little ones. In-depth conversation around committed wrongs. You got to press these kids up when they're wrong, not just, hey, why'd you do that? Oh, I'm sorry. No. Why did you do that? Do you understand? See, even for a lot of us, we don't like for people to talk to us when we're in the wrong. We just want to brush, okay, I'm sorry. No, see, the corrective therapy comes in going in depth, talking about it, realizing, admitting what you've done, thinking about what you did, thinking about what the consequences are, what they could have been, what they will be later, and thinking about how you're going to rectify the situation in the future. Therapy. Home therapy. We have scoldings, and of course, finally, we do have these spankings, which we call whoopings in the hood. But I'm going to say this, because I never tell anyone to spank their child, but I'm going to say this. If you don't discipline them, the system most definitely will. Okay? They got policies. I work in prisons. I do community work, outreach work in prison. Also in the juvenile facilities. They got some of these facilities that are holding juveniles where when the kids get to fighting, the other kids will run in and yell and try and break them up real quick and tell them, and you better stop fighting before you have to get the booty shot. The booty shot is nothing dirty, but the booty shot is when the guards rush in, tackle the young men, pull their pants down, give them a shot in the butt with a powerful sedative that knocks them out cold for about 24 to 48 hours. Is that child abuse?
Yes.
Most of us would think so, but the same people that will come and get your child for you so-called whooping them or for whatever reason and put them in their care, this is how they're going to discipline them. And how is your child going to be able to survive if they're not used to any consequences? See? So I'm not trying to listen to anyone who's telling me that I can't discipline my child, but they can do this to them. Okay? Now, real quickly, one of the things in addressing young black males and their behaviors, we got to do better at understanding them. I look at all of these programs that come on, well, listening and looking is the same to me. All these programs come on television, and they show you people in the animal world. They can understand whale calls and elephant roars. They can understand. Elephant goes, "Rrrr." They say now it's saying to the mother that it's ready to eat. Like, what? All right, y'all been out there too long. Then they get into our area. You see the news come on, and you see story after story, and the catchphrase after almost every crime, suspect was a young black male. It repeats over and over again. And then you see them go to the police. We just don't understand. Wait a minute, y'all understand the elephants, y'all understand the whales, y'all understand the birds, y'all understand what they saying, but don't nobody understand what's going on with our young men. I don't understand that. I can't buy that. There was a a sociologist, excuse me, not a sociologist. In his book, Targets of Oppression, Speech Essays on the Crisis of Black Men in America, social worker and psychotherapist Kenny Anderson thoroughly describes what he calls the S traits syndrome. I want to tell you something really quickly about what Mr. Anderson calls the S traits syndrome because I cover it in my book. The S trait syndrome is a syndrome that many of our young men suffer from very early ages. According to Mr. Anderson, most black males in America are detained and defeated by the specific socialization of the S trait syndrome. The traits of this syndrome that are repeatedly modeled for, taught to, and emulated by black males throughout America and throughout our society include the following. And we call this the S trait syndrome because most of these start with S. He's saying that our young men have a preoccupation, not just a love for, they are totally preoccupied with sports, the jock mentality, always wanting to be involved with sports, totally preoccupied with silliness, the comedian attitude. Maybe that's because almost everything that comes on television or radio today has some comedic aspect to it. And when our sons go home from school, they can watch comedy from the time they go to bed. These comedians are on and everything is silly and everything is a joke and everything is made funny. Totally obsessed with styling, which means obtaining the latest fads and fashions, all these $100 gym shoes and Rock-O-Wear shirts and all of these different things that the schools went to uniforms to try and do away with because they saw our kids are obsessed with styling. Totally obsessed with sexing, womanizing, a frequent conquest for our young men, and this is not something that we're just seeing at the high school level or the middle school level. This is now going on at the elementary school level. Okay, we got a lot of our kids who are already, as Dr. Wilkes said, they're out here too early. Substance abuse, using or selling drugs. Slickness, which means manipulating or conning, running game. And because many of our young men grow up in the quote-unquote ghetto or the quote-unquote hood, many of them by the age of 10 believe that the only way that you survive is to trick people, to run game on people. And that that's the only way to survive. We all know that is a very good way to get you an early grade. Sensationalizing, exaggerating manhood, lying, boasting, always involved in fantasy thinking and being engaged in a false sense of invincibility. Sometimes we wonder, how does one young man get into a fight with 5 young men? And sometimes it is a sense of invincibility. Exaggerating one's manhood. I could take all of y'all. Well, nah, you can't. But sometimes we have to learn the hard way. The S trait syndrome, each one of these S's that I just went over you, from silliness to sexing to styling, substance abuse, all of these, our young men did not invent these. They're not the only ones suffering from these. This is something, a syndrome that they are raised up into. That's why the title of the book started with Raised Wrong. This comes from television, it comes from peers, it comes from school, and in many instances as parents, it comes from us. The psychotherapist said that anyone who is over preoccupied with 4 out of these 7 traits is suffering from the S trait syndrome. How many adults do we know personally that are suffering from a preoccupation with more than 4 of these? That would be a lot. So as we really begin to look at the behavior, when we're looking at why they're doing certain things in class, then we have to begin to look at the comedian aspect, the silliness. We have to begin to address the fact that maybe there might be drugs involved. There might be some substance abuse involved. There might be some low self-esteem involved. And then we begin to address those characteristics as we see them. I'm going to move to your handout that says 10 tips for parents raising young black men. Should be the white sheet. It says 10 tips for parents raising young black men. Some of these, Ms. Cooper already went over, so I'm not going to go over all of them. And some of them I've covered a little bit also. But a few of them, and I didn't list these in any order. All 10 of these are very important tips, things that we all need to know. You know, it's very important that we acknowledge parenting is not an exact science. There is no complete guide or handbook on parenting from A to Z, which is why everyone, you know, puts their own personal touch on it. And we all learn and correct ourselves and make mistakes and then get it right the next time or two, hopefully, and do better, you know, as we go along. But there are always things that we need to look at that are working, that the research indicates is working in many instances. And I want to say for number 3, try to lock them into a daily or weekly routine with set times for homework and study, recreation and exercise, house chores, TV, entertainment, quiet reading, nap time, and bedtime. This is extremely important because in many instances we are upset and frustrated by the fact that we leave, we might have somewhere to go, and we tell them, you know, to do 3 things while I'm gone. I'll be gone a long time. Do 3 things, and when we get back, they found out how to say that they did 1, and it took them too long doing that, and really they've done none. And really, see, what happens is if you get used to putting them on a routine schedule, you won't have to worry about having to go back behind them and check and see, did this get done, did that get done? Sooner or later, they will just get used to doing it on schedule, and you'll be able to call on your cell phone back to the house and just, you will know by what they're doing. I mean, you will know if 6 o'clock is the TV hour or if it is not, and you hear the TV on, and you're going to know it's problems. Okay? Or if you call and they're not answering the phone at 4:30 and 4:30 is homework time, there's a problem. Because they should be right there with the homework, you know, and the phone should be well within extension. And there's a lot to be said for a routine schedule because it gives kids something to expect. They know if I do this and I do this on schedule, now I get to go outside, now I get to play, now I get to make my phone calls, but let me get this done first or I can't move on to the other thing. And what I find in many instances is we don't set routine schedules for them because we are not disciplined enough to have our own time management. Schedules help you with time management. And young people are horrible with time management, so we help them out with schedules. Want to definitely encourage you to enroll them in as many school activities as you can because this will help you and it will help them. It will help to burn off a lot of that natural physical energy that they have so much of, and many days we have so little of. Okay. I always recommend you get them in as many activities as you can without affecting their grades. Now, once you see it's affecting their grades, and you can begin to pull back on them. That means, though, that you need to come to the school and support them in some of those activities also. A lot of people think that it's not important to the kids once they get older. Parental involvement starts out high in elementary, it goes down in middle, and it plummets in high school. And we believe that the kids just don't care. Oh, you big boy now, you big girl, you don't care. You don't want mommy showing up now. You don't want daddy showing up now. Wrong. They do. They might not say that they do, but they do. How do I know? Because as a teacher, many of the students, my students always complain to me, especially those who are getting honor rolls and different things like that. But the same for sports. Don't nobody ever come up for me, Mr. Clay. That's why I don't really be into this stuff. Don't nobody ever come up to see me. My folks don't ever come. I said, did you tell them? They say, should I have to tell them? For the little ones, focus on games and activities that teach reading and counting skills from the early toddler ages up. A lot of times, parents, see, when I'm doing the workshops for the teachers, I get on my teachers. When I'm doing the workshops for the parents, we got to admit, a lot of times we are blaming the schools for things that we need to be already begin taking care of at home. When you look at the games that are out now, when you look at the puzzles, the activities that are out now, that you can start working with a child from ages 1, 2, 3, 4 years old. There is absolutely no excuses now for children to come in without having at least the fundamental basics for reading and counting. They have now every reading, counting, spelling, ABC, alphabet, game, puzzle. The things talk. They light up. You don't have to be literate yourself anymore. There are no more excuses. There's just making some time in our schedules to work with these little ones, or if we're working all the time, to find somebody else in the family. Lord knows everybody in our families are not working. I just looked at the unemployment statistics. They're horrible. So we know everybody's not working. That's not an excuse. In many instances, we got to stop making excuses and getting these things done. Next one is monitor closely your child's progress in reading and math, and insist on extra tutoring anytime that your child falls behind in either of these subjects. Okay? These subjects are the basis for all of the other subjects, math and reading. You get them started in those and you keep up on their progress, the rest of the stuff will fall into line. Math and reading. And the new government requirements from the No Child Left Behind, which is an awful law, which is leaving many children behind. The only good thing that I've seen in the No Child Left Behind law is that it mandates that if you request tutoring, your school must meet that request. As a matter of fact, before there's even a request, most schools have to provide some form of tutoring. Yeah. And at any time when you raise your hand and say, hey, we got a problem right here, I want math, I want reading tutoring, it must be given. Develop a professional relationship with your child's teachers. Exchange phone numbers with them. Okay, because many teachers now have cell phones, and they will give you their cell phone number. Attend important school events, and make sure that school staff members know who you are. Always do that. Whether your child is an A student or a C student, it does not matter. Make sure that they know who you are. Talk to your child openly about important life issues such as peer pressure, relationships, health, sex, sexual abuse, substance abuse, spirituality, mortality, personal safety, and personal values. Never not talk to your children about these things. There is no such thing as old enough. Of course, I tell you like this. The older they get, it just means the more in depth that you can talk to them about these subjects. But there is no age at which you can't talk to them about these subjects, because if you are not talking, someone else is. If you are not talking, the television is. When you are not talking, hip-hop music is talking, and it's filling in all of the blanks that you leave in, and you will be amazed at some of the things that the blanks are being filled in with. You must fill in the blanks. Let the other people be the commentary on the side, not You be the commentary on the side, and they're filling in all of the blanks and with the real information. Because in many instances, that's how kids kind of look at parents. They like, well, you know, I really talk to my friends, and I talk to so-and-so, and then I go and I talk to my play aunt, you know, and, you know, but then, you know, mom and them, they always come in, you know, if I really have a problem, I can go to them. If one parent is absent from your son's life, and this is the male or the female, mom or dad, then you must make an extra effort to routinely have him spend time with some positive adult role models that are of the gender of the missing parent. This is absolutely important. We know the last statistics say that approximately 72% of all households in the city of Detroit are single female-headed households. Only 28% of the households in our city, according to the last study, had adult men in them, period. Not fathers, adult men. So that means that we have to do a better job of getting some positive adult men, and in the cases where the mother is not there, some positive adult women to be around them, because every child, sons, daughter, every child must know what a man is. Every child must know what a woman is if they are going to emulate and be one later in life, and if they are going to engage in constructive relationships with the opposite sex when they become adults. They're going to have to know this. The last number 10 just tells you that we give many more tips and much deeper insight in the book, Raised Wrong, Educated Worse, addressing the troubled behavior of our sons. And before we leave today, anyone who wants to purchase copies of the book, I signed a few, brought them in, and if you want to purchase an already signed copy and get many more of these types of tips, then you'll be able to do that right at the end of the program. I want to go to flip back to your other handout. The 2-page one. I want to go back to reestablishing discipline, except for this time. Okay, this time I want to deal with positive reinforcement at home. Everybody see that one? Should be on the back of the first discipline worksheet. Positive reinforcement at home. I went over because it was very important for our sons to understand that there are consequences for their behavior. Something I always try to get them to understand in class. But we must understand as parents that reestablishing discipline is not all about negatives or consequences. It is also about having positive reinforcement for good behavior. Okay? All about recognizing good behavior, recognizing accomplishments. It's hard for our kids nowadays. There's so many eyes on them, there's so many expectations of them, and there's so many people just waiting who already stereotype them, label them, and just waiting for them to mess up. So reestablishing discipline in our homes is not just about negatives, it's about these positives. And it is about using positive reinforcement from early ages as a powerful tool in properly molding our sons' overall behavior and in molding their overall sense of morality. And I again gave you just a few suggestions down here for positive reinforcement, doing things that will help you in terms of having a highly visible place in the home where you can showcase all of their awards, whether it be a mantle, fireplace, whatever it is. They always need a place where you can showcase their awards at. Oh, I kind of skipped a few. Words of encouragement. Verbal congratulations when they accomplish something. Big hugs, always good. Show them some love.
Yes.
Constant motivation, okay? A lot of times you hear our youngsters always, one of their favorite words is player hating. They feel, that people are always hating on them.
Yeah.
Which means talking down, discouraging them, trying to hate on their dreams, their aspirations. So we have to give them constant motivation to block out some of the hateration. Meaningful, not necessarily expensive, but meaningful gifts. Quality time spent together. Family outings, nice little trips and things. Celebratory parties to celebrate, decent accomplishments. Or year-end report cards, graduations. Increased or restored allowance. So you can take it away the allowance, and you can give it the allowance back once the behavior changes. That's how you modify behavior. You tweak it and get it to what you want it to be. New or increased personal privileges. Increased driving privileges for the older ones. Boy, it's wonders what access to the car can do. But in order to use these, you are going to first have to be, in order to even use the car as a carrot type of approach, as a privilege, it means that you're going to have to be willing to seriously restrict the car when they're not doing right. Reminders to your sons that you love and care about them deeply. This is all important for parents because we have to be balanced in our approach in order to raise well-rounded young men. We have to be balanced. We can't just be all hard on them. They got to know some love along with the discipline.
Yes.
Want to go to your other handout here that talks about reducing television time. Reducing TV and video game time. Basically, I'm going to wind up because I want to, I like getting some feedback. I like doing question and answers. And so I'm going to go over these real quick. Basically, the National Sleep Foundation did a study, and they found out what those of us who are teachers already knew. Our kids are watching way too much television. For a long time, there was a debate about what type of effect, if any, it was having. Some people were saying, oh, y'all overblowing it. They did some intensive studies, and they found out that it was definitely having some effects. And I write about it extensively in the book. 2 to 3 hours is what American children watch in television. Black children average 4 to 6 hours of television per day. Okay? If you just, so per week we're talking about 28 to 42 hours of television. And we know that they watch more even on the weekends. And so everything that we're saying our kids don't do or we wish they would do, when you factor in all of this television time, that is time that they could be doing it, could be learning how to do things, could be being productive, could be learning skills, learning trades, could be reading, could be doing so many other things if we first reduce the television time. And the thing that is really disturbing is how the television time connects to this. I want you to look at your handout that says enforcing nightly bedtime. One of the reasons that many of us cannot enforce a decent nightly bedtime is because even when we tell the kids to go to bed, what's in their bedroom? TV. What do they do when they go get into bed? they cut the TV on. Many of my students who used to come in dog-tired, falling asleep, I couldn't understand this, how we would get to school and the first thing that students would say at 8 o'clock on the dot, before class even started, you hear just many of them, oh, I'm so tired, I don't know what to do. Wait a minute, how can you be that tired? We just getting started. Second hour would come, the next class would come in, you hear the same thing. Third hour would come, the next class, I'm so sleepy, I hate school. Wait a minute, you didn't get sleepy in school? Well, how you come to school this tired? So then the truth would come out. Well, Mr. Clay, they had something came on their TV, I was watching it about 1:30. Oh, okay. Well, what about, your mama let you watch TV? Well, she don't let me, but the TV is in the room. I used to get them, I'd say, my daughter, ain't no way in the world, she can't. They said, Mr. Clay, no, you don't understand. If the TV is in our room, then you can't tell us. You can't make us because you're going to go to sleep. Eventually. I said, well, I fixed that. Because there just won't be a TV in the room. I understand this principle. I understand that if it's there, you're going to use it. It won't be a TV in the room. So then they would turn from, y'all can't stop us from watching the TV to, oh man, that's not fair, Mr. Clay. You mean, that's wrong. You got to have a TV in the room as a kid. No, you don't. You don't have to have anything if you are not responsible enough to use it properly. And this is one of the things that we got to begin to assess. If the kids are sleepy or oversleeping every day or tired in every class, do they really need the television in the room, or does it have to stay in there overnight? And we have to begin to ask that question. Because I'm telling you, their attitude is, if the TV's in my room, I'm controlling that bad boy, I'm watching. They tell me the same thing about the telephone. They say, Mr. Clay, I'm sleepy because I stayed on the phone all night last night. I'm like, so mama don't know about you taking the phone, turning the ringer off the phone and go, no, man, we got cell phones now. That's how we do it. What are you talking about? Cell phone, you can't stop me from getting on my cell. I said, yes, I can, because the cell phone don't come in your name. It comes in your parents' name, and your parents going to open it up and see the times that you're on the phone, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, and you're going to be restricted from the cell phone. You're going to have to check that baby in. Man, I'm glad I ain't your son or your daughter. You wrong. You can't be like that. Wait, it's my phone. Do you pay the cell phone bill? No. In most cases, no. So we have to be more proactive in taking charge and doing these things, because I'm telling you, kids are going to be kids. I mean, come on. We have to step up to the plate as parents, take better control of the situation. I'm going to wrap up the presentation of my part right there. Wait, let me just say this. Let me say this. And I'll get some feedback, some questions, some comments. I just want to address this factor. Okay. There's one other thing in raising black males especially that we have to do. We have to begin to confront the baby boy phenomenon. The baby boy phenomenon. Did anybody in here see the movie Baby Boy? Okay. Then y'all should understand the baby boy phenomenon. Excellent movie. If you didn't see it, you should check it out, rent it tonight. Baby boys. You see, John Singleton put that movie together because he said, we're producing far too many baby boys in the black community. And when we keep asking what's wrong with our men and where are the men, we really have a lot of grown boys. Yeah. Baby boys have been spoiled and coddled all of their lives to the point that they look forward to being taken care of by someone else. They feel incapable of taking on all of the responsibilities, all of the dangers, and the daily changes that confront black men in oppressed black neighborhoods. Once their luck runs out at home, they go to live off of a girlfriend. If and when she puts them out, they move back home temporarily and then into the house with another girlfriend. By the time that any adult, baby boy, reaches age 30, he loses all hope and belief that he can one day stand independently on his own 2 feet. And this is something that we're doing when we constantly, and many of us baby our young men because we know what can happen to them. We know all the trouble that they can get into and all this. But what we don't understand is that when we do this and when we don't raise them up to be responsible, strong, and independent, an independent thinker, a problem solver, when we don't allow them to sometimes get themselves out of their own jams, what we do is we basically raise them to be toothless tigers out here walking around in a jungle. And they become prey for those who are planning against them. And we don't want to do that. So we must begin to address the baby boy phenomenon. Thank you very much. If anyone has a question or a comment, anything that I covered, then raise your hand and
I have a question. I have a comment. Okay. You know, I strongly believe what you're saying about discipline of children, but I got an 11-year-old, 13-year-old, and 16-year-old. My 11-year-old told me one time I did discipline. I whipped him for tearing up my property, and he told me, I'm gonna call the police. I said, you know what? You call the police. Do what you want to do. Pack your stuff, but don't come back. My point is, now these days, if you do that, they call the police. They immediately arrest you. Don't ask no questions or nothing. They arrest you for disciplining your children. And I don't know if you heard about a long time ago, where this lady had put her child in a room because she went to a adult party, and later on that night she called the police and she hit herself. She said her mother hit her. They took her to jail. For no apparent reason.
Right. There are all kinds of strange, you're right, there are all kinds of strange cases. And we have some of our youngsters who have other issues will plan, they will set you up. You don't even have to do anything. The 2 guidelines that I give for parents are this. Number 1, if you are a parent and you are going to whoop your child, take a break first. Okay, because the children don't need to be disciplined out of anger, and sometimes we can, that's when things can go too far. But if you have disciplined your child properly, the main thing is this. If someone happens, be it your child or someone else happens to call the police, at some point, if they come, then we have to be willing to have calm and reasonable conversation with authorities about what's going on with the house, in your house, what happened, get them to understand your rules, your situation, and be able to call other family members as character witnesses for you. Sometimes the police are called and immediately we're so insulted that they've come that we then insult them, and the situation goes to something else. So we do have to be careful about that, but there are ways to deal with that. Any other questions or comments?
Okay, I wanted to, a lot of kids right now is being diagnosed with ADHD. And I just wrote a term paper. I got an A on it, matter of fact.
Congratulations.
Anyway, I don't believe in ADHD. I don't know where it came from. I think it's just a phenomenon. I think it's like the prison conspiracy. I think it's a conspiracy, basically, because they cannot cut a person's body open and see that, oh, you got ADD. I mean, where did it come from? They can't. What is it?
That's a great comment. I don't care whether you call it hyperactivity, ADHD. This is, for the most, I'm not a psychologist, but I can tell you I've done extensive research on the issue also. There is no doubt that on an average, boys tend to bring more physical energy to the way that they play. They tend to, we all know that boys tend to play a little bit harder. They tend to, run a little bit, What has happened in schools across America, and it really jumped off in the 80s, was there was this big thing about the hyperactivity of young black boys. And a whole new batch of drugs was put out here to confront it. And school systems and doctors and psychiatrists, they all ran to solve their quote-unquote black boy problem. See, our boys didn't just start doing bad in school. They just got to the point where, nowadays it's easier for them to drop out. Even when they were in, they weren't doing well. Okay, and so what happened was ADHD and Ritalin and the other drugs to solve it became a quick fix to the quote-unquote black boy problem. And it wasn't a quick fix. And the drugs had tremendous side effects. And nowadays, they don't necessarily use Ritalin. They have 5 or 6 different other alternatives. But these drugs act the same. And what I'm trying to do is get people to understand if a child is showing too much energy, usually it's a reason. And there are other ways to control it through diet, regular exercise, sports, just routine discipline. There are ways, bedtime. You can change a child's bedtime and a child's diet and completely change many of their behaviors. And there are other things that we address in the book that you can do to begin to address ADHD, quote unquote, so-called ADHD, which for the most part is a phantom. It's a phantom diagnosis. What really needs to be done is we need to improve how we address their diets, their routines, their daily routines, and we need to address what goes on in their classrooms and making their classrooms more interesting, more relevant to them, more engaging to them, and then they won't be bouncing around off the wall so much. They'll be wanting, learning has to be engaging to them, and it's got to count them in. And so when we do things with the teachers, those are the types of things we cover for them. Any other questions, comments?
As a sidelight to the ADHD, Michigan has one of the highest percentage of people that have been diagnosed and are prescribed medicine for that condition. So it is a national phenomenon, but in this area, it seems to be more prevalent than anywhere else in the country.
Definitely. Definitely. And the number one reason is because Detroit. I got to tell you all, I've had the pleasure of teaching in Detroit for my first 7 years, but I did my student teaching in Ann Arbor. And Ann Arbor is considered the education capital in Michigan simply because the University of Michigan is there. And I can tell you, if they're saying that our boys have ADHD, I saw a whole lot of ADHD with the white young men out in Ann Arbor. The only difference was they weren't calling it ADHD and they weren't doping them all up on RIT. That's the only difference.
Of course.
See, now they went, matter of fact, one of my friends taught at a school called Community High School. And Community High School was looked at as cutting edge education in Ann Arbor. It was where the kids could do anything they wanted to. Right in the classroom, most of the teachers would let them do whatever they want. They learn when they want to learn. They put on their headphones and listen to their Walkman whenever they want to. They do what they want to do, and then when they get ready to come into the education setting that's going on, they came in, they get their grades, they called it self-paced learning. These were kids that in our school system, they would have called them ADHD and put them on Ritalin for a lifetime. They just put them in school, said, okay, we understand y'all got energy, y'all like to walk around. Walk around while you learning then. Oh, it ain't no big deal. All those kids would have been kicked out in Detroit. Any other questions, comments? Okay, I want to thank you all for being a great audience. hope I was able to shed some light on this issue and help you in terms of raising and educating your sons and your daughters. And again, anyone who wants to pick up a book, you may do so. Thank you very much.
Mr. Clay, we are so pleased that you are here with us today.
Yes.
And in behalf of Dr. Harville, our principal, and all our students and staff, we have a certificate for you, okay? And of course, we needed this light to shed on us so that we can start rethinking what we think about our black boys, and especially our black boys here in Detroit.
Yes.
And we're thankful that you have engaged in writing a book
Yes.
and spreading the word that we need to save our black boys and daughters. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How many did not know that McMichael needs you? And our kids, yes.
That's right.
Okay.
Okay, don't let this be the last time.
First, in her absence, I want to thank Dr. Harville for allowing us to have this workshop. And again, we want to thank Mr. Richard Clay and of course his father for coming here. Thank you. She's our youth and school person. I like to say anything that you need, we'll have Ms. Burke, who is our resource teacher. Ms. James, Ms. Kimberly James as well. Is also part of that team. We also have Ms. Spencer, and I know she's going to be showing up very soon.
She's bringing all this.
She brought all the lunch.
And can we make sure that you sign Ms. Spencer's form before
Yes.
you leave? She needs hers for the FIA worker.
Okay. Back here is our secretary of our LSCO.
University. And also, we are looking for interns, so if any young people think about it, you can ask me.
Okay. My question, you said you're